Every year around the world, an increasing number of college students are dropping out and leaving school. Too many are burnt out and lack the motivation to continue advancing their studies on into higher education from high school. For a great many students, taking a gap year is a solution, one that can propel them forward to further their academic and professional interests and studies. According to statistics recently released by the Organization for Economic Development and Cooperation, an international organization that measures international economic progress, 70% of American college students matriculate at a four-year university, but only 60% end up graduating. If community colleges are calculated in, then graduating percentages drop well below 50%, a percentage that lines up with Western Kentucky University's own graduation rate. In an article for the New York Times, David Brooks, a political and cultural American commentator, writes that so many college students are dropping out because they are academically unprepared and emotionally disengaged. An overwhelming amount of students, whether they go to college and get burnout, or they go into their workplace and are burnout, they burn out so easy because of this lack of motivation and lack of emotional engagement. I imagine that you agree with me that this is all rather unsettling, especially considering that this portrays a loss of American potential. There is hope, however. A growing number of students are making the choice to delay their college education for a year, or taking off a year from their studies or in the workplace to take a gap year. Lately, you may have heard all the hubbub about Obama's eldest daughter, Malia, who has recently decided to take a gap year before going to Harvard University. This past week, a few publications have released articles that state students who take gap years are less likely to return to formal education afterwards, or fall far behind their peers if they do end up going back to school. Harvard University's Admissions and Financial Office states that students who take a gap year come to college with new visions of their academic plans, their extracurricular pursuits, the intangibles they hope to gain in college, and the career possibilities that they observed during this gap year. While there's a general fear that gap year students may lag behind students who are traditionally educated, many of these students take great advantage of their time away from traditional schooling to pursue their passions and interests, often in a professional setting. Studies done at Middlebury College in Vermont and the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill show that a gap year students have honestly a modestly higher GPA than non-gap year traditional students. There are some that refer to a gap year as a year off. I, myself, a recent gap year student, consider this time to be a year on, a year to tactfully pursue unique academic interests. Last year, I took an academic gap year living and studying in Beijing, China, on a full-ride scholarship from the United States Department of State. This scholarship granted me the opportunity to study Chinese language and culture at a Chinese public high school as a foreign exchange student. During this year abroad, I was able to make many advancements in my own personal life. It allowed me the time and the space to advance my work and study ethic, to develop my interpersonal communication skills, and most importantly, encouraged me to later attend university to further my studies. Every year around the world, an increasing number of college students are dropping out and leaving school. Too many are burnt out and lack the motivation to continue advancing their studies on into higher education. For a great many students, gap years are a solution, one that can propel them into further their academic and professional interests. Students should not be pressured into directly enrolling into a university after completing their high school education. Rather, students should progress at a healthy pace towards a goal that is interesting and challenging enough to pursue. Students, take life by the horns. Take a year on.